There is nothing more inspiring, more rewarding, and more stimulating than teaching.
What I think my job as a teacher is to try to figure out how to get my students excited about the challenge.
I like to think that it's not just a one-way learning flow, like between me helping my students, but like they're helping me to become a better teacher.
What I really want them to do when they finish a course with me is not to be able to name, 50 primates or every single fossil in the fossil record, but tell me why it's important.
If there's anything that you get from my classes, is the very process of asking questions. Not answers, but questions. Because that's what provokes.
I think I trust him so much because he's honest. He's very vulnerable with his students.
When I present, for instance, the history of Mexican and Central American immigration to this country, it cannot start without me mentioning why I'm here. And that has to do with my grandfather, who was a guest worker bracero. That story started a whole series of events that led me to become a teacher, the only in my family to receive a PhD and to work at a university.
In his class, we're able to bring in a lot of personal stories, a lot of personal experiences. We're not just learning, we're also contributing. We're giving back. We're learning from him and he's learning from us.
He was the first professor who was like, no, this is an exchanging of knowledge. I give you the knowledge that I've learned from his professors and you give me your knowledge from your lived experience. So it's like me as like a 20-year-old exchanging my knowledge with a professor is something that I never thought of that I would be doing when I committed to Berkeley.
She cares to know who we are as people so that she can incorporate those things in the classroom.
It is first and foremost about her relationship with her students.
Everyone brings something to the table, la tabula, and we share it.
The single most important lesson that I've learned in this long journey has been the importance of listening, being in the moment, being present, being engaged, being in tune, because every class is different and every student brings something different to the classroom every day. The syllabus to me is where it actually starts. I try to leave it open and flexible enough to allow for surprises and creativity and unexpected, twists and turns.
The primary content of the class is her students, and what they contribute. And it really relies on us, but it's her that forms that community.
He has a genuine passion for his subject.
The energy, passion he brings to the classroom is incredible and contagious.
A really great law school class has a crackle. It has excitement. It has people ready to debate one another. I use the Socratic method. I cold call people. I ask lots of questions and stay with people, get them to argue with one another.
Do you think that these arguments should be allowed? Should we have per diem arguments?
Maybe, yeah.
Let me come to Kat. Kat, what do you think?
For me, that's the excitement of law school because it's so interactive.
The way he treats other people is so welcoming and inclusive and engaging. And
in every part of his teaching, he tries to help people see the bigger picture.
Exactly. And that's what I think if anybody ever steps foot into his classroom, you'll see how much fun he's having and how clearly passionate about the subject matter he is and how he gets so much joy out of it.
Her classes are teaching us the way of integrating anthropology and archaeology into the discussion of current issues.
What's important for students is to see that there's this field of work and contributions, but to see it in real time. So I like to integrate it, to showcase what's really happening in this field right now by people like them.
I also saw through her classes a very compassionate discourse about colonization and Native people and how we need to fight for that.
I love when students take the class and they think, okay, I'm going to learn about primates, I'm going to learn evolution, but they find out that understanding humans as biosocial organisms changes and is important for how we understand all kinds of big issues. So it changes how we, it can contribute to how we think about social inequality or racism or things like global warming, and that we have contributions to all of this. I love that.
I think of the classroom as sort of like my experimental laboratory, my research laboratory, where I can experiment with new things. And I'm changing my lecture based on what questions they're asking and the feedback I'm getting. So it's like more flexible and dynamic that way.
Yeah, good question. So the question is, how do we know where this gene is being inserted?
The energy that I feel in the classroom, there's this excitement that everyone wants to talk about what just happened. Like, oh, Professor Bradt just said that.
I can really just see her passion shine through, and I think that's something that really stands out to me in professors. When they love what they teach, I'm just like, okay, tell me more. I'm all for it.
The way that Professor Agarwal encourages each student to participate in conversation and discussion in class actually gives us the opportunity to hear each other and develop our thought as a community, and I really liked that about her.
After COVID, it was very hard to go back to the lecture halls, but she managed to create a family environment in class.
I want to have students come into a room feeling that they have something to contribute already.
With my background in anthropology and archaeology, I want to apply those thoughts and theories to the way that we approach fashion, and it's because of her class. Her class is the reason why I applied to graduate school. So I don't think she knows this.
Professor Agarwal completely revolutionized my concepts of human origins and human evolution being the most interesting field within archaeology.
It's a luxury. It's a luxury to teach students that come from so many diverse backgrounds to be able to push boundaries with them in a field and make it grow.
So I would say the crucial part of Chicanx and Latinx studies is our stories. And really overcoming the fear of telling our stories.
Dr. Gonzalez has definitely shaped my experience here at Cal and beyond that, Now I know I can do podcasts, record without feeling scared, listening to my own voice, like my own words, the power I have. Now I know that.
Being able to listen to these stories, to make connections with them, and to amplify those voices here at Cal. So we amplify voices that don't necessarily get heard. But when they're out there and they resonate and people listen to them, what then?
One of the things that I came to realize in my own civil procedure class was that you could tell this whole story of American law through civil procedure. The story of how American law has evolved since the beginning. It's a way that I can use that first year class to open the whole door to everything to them, the whole landscape of what they're gonna do for the next 3 years. And when I see them get that, that's really exciting.
Taking the civil procedure with him was one of the most important parts of my journey in figuring out my career goals.
Procedure is, I would say, a passion of mine now, and a lot of that is because of Professor Bradt.
Procedural rules, they're very kind of easy to take for granted in our system, but he's very good at explaining and showing how they reflect like a certain set of policy choices that we've made, and those choices have like huge impacts on equity and access to justice and civil rights.
I really think it's important that we realize that science isn't just this isolated bubble. It really does interact with society, and of course, our students are, bringing the real world into the classroom, and so it's really important to integrate that information into the science classes and make good, informed citizens who can understand both society and the ethics of these new techniques and technologies that come out of science research.
She really centers us in the conversation and tells us that here's your space to form your own opinions, and we're part of science right now, and she inspires us to have our own questions. And that's when it really hit me. Oh, I'm on this amazing campus where I can be involved in this.
Through her, with her gift of opening the doors wide open to Italian, I've really been able to step into that world and say that Italian is a part of me now. I can't imagine myself not speaking or, learning about Italian.
Thank you to my students and their energy and their commitment, because it really goes both ways. I commit to them and they commit to me.
The reason I finished, wrote a thesis, and went to graduate school and wanted to be in a department where I would teach language was because of her and her magic.
Yeah, there's just a magic about her.
If being a student were a career, I would have chosen that. So teaching is the next best thing.
My teachers are people that clean the offices, that serve their food, that throw away the trash. What I teach is always connected to the lived realities of people that are faceless and not recognized. And I love that.
I love biology just in general. I remember when I was a student and there would be a few key moments where I would learn something new and just be totally amazed that that was happening inside of my cells, inside of my body.
Someone told me, you really gotta take anthropology, and I had no idea what it was. And I didn't know that it related to so many other big political questions, social questions, economic questions. Really that core question of what does it mean to be human? Understanding that bio-social understanding of the human experience. And as soon as I got into that, I was hooked.
It's important from day one to get students to understand that they're really part of something wonderful already. And if I can communicate that on the first day and I can see it through to the last day, then I've done my job.